Stone Butch Blues, a novel written by Leslie Feinberg, was set in the 1950s in Buffalo, New York. Feinberg tells the story of Jess Goldberg, a young masculine lesbian, also known as a butch, back in the time when this novel was set in the 1950s, during which time they began growing into a new identity in defiance of the institutional violence during pre-Stonewall America. If you aren't sure what I mean by that, the Stonewall riots began at the end of the 1960s when police raided the Stonewall Inn, a gay club in New York City. Jess's story is about the difficulty that comes with creating oneself both voluntarily and involuntarily. Jess knows who they want to be, but doesn't know how to get there. With the help of the queer community around them and their indomitable determination to just exist, Jess embarks on a transformation to self-discovery. Throughout their journey, Jess gets raped, beaten by cops, and treated as if they were subhuman when interacting with doctors, as they slowly come to the realization that they identify as a transgender lesbian. The first chapter of the novel is a letter that Jess writes to their previous girlfriend, Teresa, in which they recount the hardships they faced through their transition and how big of an impact she had on their transition. And so here's my letter to the girl that made me the man I am today. As I read you this letter, you will notice that in the subtitle some of the words are italicized. These words are direct quotes from the novel that relate directly to my experience. You will also see some videos and images from the time period in which it was set. So here we go. Dear C, I want to begin this letter by saying thank you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be the man I am today. That being said, it has been a hard and long road to get where I am. I always knew that there was something different about me, but I couldn't quite figure it out. My freshman year of high school, I came out as lesbian. At the time, I didn't know what the term transgender even was, but I knew I was attracted to girls. But the issue was, I didn't look like any of the girls or women I'd seen in the Sears catalog, or the girls in the commercials, the TV shows, the movies, the store windows, all portraying women with long hair, covered in makeup, skinny bodies. I looked nothing like them. When I came out as lesbian my freshman year of high school, that's when everything changed. I started dressing more masculine, I cut all my hair off, but that was one of the hardest parts of this whole journey to self-discovery was looking androgynous, especially when using the public bathroom. This is the women's bathroom, she informed me. I nodded. I know. I locked the stall door behind me. Their laughter cut me to the bone. You don't know if that's a man or not, one woman said to the other. We should call security just to make sure. When I was really small, I thought I'd do anything to change whatever was wrong with me. Now I didn't want to change. I just wanted people to stop being mad at me all the time and judging me based on how I look and not by the value of my character. They said God didn't create women to look like men. Backlash from my church was the worst part. People treated me differently after that. I remember my friend Lauren saying, if I were a guy, she'd be in love with me. And after that moment, that's when my mind shifted and started to change. I'd spent my whole life wishing I could be invisible until you came along and showed me what it was like to be visible and seen in a world that tells you you should not exist. I remember the first day I saw you across the lunchroom, sitting at a table with a girl who looked at me in disgust, but I decided to walk up to you anyway. I'm not sure if that decision to walk up to you was the best or worst decision I've ever made. From then on, I told you everything. You're the person I told that I thought I was trans. Although it felt good to finally say it out loud, you began to deal with the repercussions of my outsiderness. You kept yelling at them that I'm a human being, that I mattered, and it was like they weren't even listening to you. You couldn't do anything to help me, and you couldn't make them take care of me the way you wanted. You sat back on the sidelines and watched me get tormented. I'm sorry I put you through that. Finally, the summer in between my junior and sophomore year of high school, I came out as trans. But I wondered what kind of courage was required to leave the sex you'd always known. But you helped me build that courage. You're the one who helped me come out to the world. I wondered if things would get easier or if they would just get harder. Because we've been taught to hate people who are different. It's been pumped into our brains. It keeps everybody fighting each other. The first memories I have once I finally came out as trans all dealt with negativity and hatred. I remember people saying, you're really sick, you know that? You really need help. The world judged me harshly, and so I moved or was pushed towards solitude. I remember being referred to as it for the first time. How the hell should I know what it is? The pronouns echoed in my ears. I had gone back to being an it, and in all those moments I struggled to hang on to the last shred of self-worth. That's when all the violence began. I lost a lot of confidence after that first beating. The pain in my ribcage reminded me that with every breath how vulnerable I really was. I remember waking up in the dumpster behind the school covered in that day's lunch. Unlucky for me, it was a sloppy Joe day. But what was worse than the beating was there's something that eats me up more than pain. Like always feeling so damn powerless. That feeling that I couldn't stand up for myself even though I was a larger girl. I was very muscular and had a large build, but I didn't have the mental capacity to fight back. But surrender was unimaginably more dangerous than struggling for survival. I've been fighting to defend who I am all my life. I'm tired. I just don't know how to go on anymore. This is the only way I can think of. I can still be me and survive. I just don't know any other way. I then went to a transgender therapist. He was the first transgender male adult I had come into close contact with, and gosh, did I idolize him. Once I shook his hand, my perspective changed. My self-worth changed. A handshake like that is a challenge. It seeks out power through incremental encouragement at the point of maximum strength. Once equality is established, then you really have met. Fast track to my freshman year of college. After just 2 weeks on campus, I met with Dr. Wares at the health center to discuss starting testosterone. And on August 26, 2016, I had my first injection. After starting testosterone, my body started to change. My voice deepened, my shoulders broadened, facial hair started to grow. I slowly began to look like a man. It was time for the most important test of all, the men's room. I remember walking in for the first time and running straight into the stall. As I approached the sink, I was afraid of what might happen, but nothing did. All the other men went about their day like nothing happened. No one looked at me sideways or made a remark. I could go to the bathroom whenever and wherever I needed without pressure or shame. What an enormous relief. 3 months after starting testosterone, I had top surgery. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's the trans terminology for breast augmentation and chest reconstruction surgery. It had been so long since I've been at home in my body. I remember waking up from surgery, looking down at a flat chest and thinking, there it was, the body I'd wanted. I wonder why it would have been so hard. The surgery was a gift to myself, a coming home to my body. From then on, I was truly allowed to live as a man in society. It feels good to be free to do the little things, like go to a public restroom in peace, or go to the barber. It's nice to be smiled at by strangers or flirted with at a lunch counter. Things that cisgender people take for granted are the things that I have been so afraid of all my life. But now I feel liberated in the fact that I can do these things without fear. Some of the most valuable lessons I've learned through all the shit I've had to deal with came to my realization when reading this book. One of them being is what courage is. It's not just living through the nightmare, it's doing something with it afterward. It's being brave enough to talk about it to other people and trying to organize to change things. And once you break the silence, it's just the beginning. In the book, Jess dealt with police brutality and getting raped by cops, being arrested just for their sexual and gender identities, things that I thankfully didn't have to deal with. But what is the same between us is that there is a fear of being fired due to gender or sexual orientation, fear of being outed and not accepted by those around you, fear of being harassed due to my identity. But just like them, I want to find out who I was, to define myself. Whoever I was, I wanted to deal with it. I wanted to live it again. I wanted to be able to explain my life, how the world looked from behind my eyes. The world was wrong about me. I had a right to live. I never thought I'd spend so much of my life fighting over which bathroom I could use. But here we are. And although there is still a lot more fighting left to do in terms of trans rights and LGBT rights, I think conditions are going to make it impossible for us not to fight to change things. But regardless, imagine a world worth living in, a world worth fighting for. I think that world will be real one day. I hope you see that that world, my world, was created because of you. I'm still steering my own course through uncharted waters, relying on constellations that were not fixed. Thank you. Love, Rylan.